My friends, I've noticed, and you might have noticed this as well. There's a weird phenomenon at doctors' offices where pretty much all doctors' offices, at least for adults, have HGTV playing. Have you ever noticed that? They have HGTV, the network, playing. That's pretty much in every doctor's office for me or for my wife that we've been in. It's HGTV. I have some theories about why this is. That shows are inoffensive. You can watch them without sound. You don't get invested in character arcs or storylines because presumably, even if the wait time is long, you are eventually going to leave the waiting room, hopefully. Now, I've spent over the last long period of time, a good amount of time in doctors' offices, and there are some patterns to these shows. There's some enthusiasm for the project. Then, of course, there's the unforeseen difficulty. Then they work through it and build to this moment of anticipation before the final reveal of the renovation or the new home purchase, or they swapped homes, or the property brothers were involved in something, not just dating Zooey Deschanel. In this week's Parsha, so I was thinking about this because of what this Parsha contains. It feels like, in fact, we are approaching that final moment of anticipation before the reveal of the Ten Commandments. At the very end of last week's reading, Moses ascended Mount Sinai to begin receiving the laws from Hashem. The Israelites were left below in the care of Aaron and Hur, waiting for their leader to return. We know, those of us who have followed the storyline and know what's coming next, that this is going to have some negative consequences, but we actually do have to wait a couple more weeks for the golden calf. This week, while Moses is basically absent from the story, the Israelites are given instructions about how to construct the Mishkan, sort of the place that's going to hold the Holy of Holies. And when I say instructions, let me be clear that these instructions are detailed. And not just detailed, they are real detailed. There are 450 verses in the Torah about the instructions for the construction of this particular edifice. Now, it also might be that these instructions are a lot. They're much. They're gaudy. I'm sure that the two cherubim of gold with their wings spread out above, shielding the cover with their wings, were probably beautiful, but they were also likely a lot. So for the 40 days that Moses was away, the Israelites worked. And this is where sort of my brain went to HGTV. It reminded me of sort of the weeks before you welcome a new baby, which you hopefully do not know, but you spend the time. Did you catch it? No. You're getting the room ever so. You are trying to get as much done while the wife or whatever is able to work, so that when the baby is ready to come and ready to come home, everything is prepared. And so, yes, the metaphor I'm using here is that the Israelites were nested, waiting for Moses to come down with the law. Do anyone know the term nesting? You might not, because you are not at child having age. Birds do make nests. Yes, adult women by and large do the same basic thing. I know biologically and evolutionarily why mothers do this. My question for all of you is, why does this make sense theologically? It's not been all that long since the Israelites were evacuated from Egypt. What might this tell us about the theology of the time? As an example, I want to talk about those cherubim, angels. The rabbis throughout the years have wondered about and debated their purpose. Rabbi Obadiah ben Jacob Sforno sees a message in the way that they're described, suggesting that although our inspiration for behavior originates in heaven, understanding can only come from paying attention and studying what Hashem does in our world, in the material world. Rashi describes the area between these two cherubim as the place where Hashem's voice speaks to Moses. Or, if you want to put it more visually, Rashi thinks that Hashem speaks with two angels looking over his shoulder. There are other interpretations as well, but I also want to offer this as sort of a lesson. The Israelites are building something without concrete evidence that it's coming. They have faith that it's coming. They have seen Hashem's power. There should be no doubt, but they're building on faith. It's not building to remind them of where they came from. It's a building for the future. There's an expression that you've probably heard: we plan and God laughs, or plans don't usually go as you expect. And there's beauty in that potential. There's beauty in the idea that you're making plans. We all do this for something that may or may not happen. How many times, well, maybe not you guys, but have you had conversations with friends about, oh, we're definitely going to go on that trip, or we're going to go to Disney this weekend for sure. We're all absolutely going to go. And let's be honest, a lot of the time we know we're not going on that cruise. We're not going to Disney. We're not going on that trip. But this is a little bit different. This is coming from a place of faith with some backing. And I don't want you to take away from this. I don't want the lesson for this week to be that we should not create plans on faith. We should not give up on this idea of building for the future, even if the future is obviously uncertain. There's a fine line between faith and foolishness. If I were making plans based on having a salary of $10 million next year, that would be dumb. But in this context, the Israelites knew Hashem existed. And so what I want us to take away is that there is strength and there is comfort in the idea of action, even in the absence of certainty. So as we go into this next week, 2 more weeks till spring break, I want us to think about the value of acting, even if the outcome is immediately unclear. Shabbat Shalom.